Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Code Remix Weekly. We're your usual hosts, me, Sam, and him, Tim. How you doing, him, Tim?
I'm just doing just fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to hear it. It's beautiful here in Seattle, although has been a little bit of wildfire smoke blowing in lately. Fortunately, we're having a lovely breeze in from off the ocean to blow it back east, which the people who live in the east might not be super happy about, but is better for me in Seattle, so I can't help but appreciate it. How's the weather where you are? Dark, it looks like.
Uh, it is getting dark again. Yeah, it's 9 o'clock in the evening here, so not too unexpected. But it'll only get worse until the point where it's like 5 in the afternoon and you have it dark, and then only like 3 more months, and then I'll be to spend
Yeah.
some of those abroad, and then we'll work it out from there.
Yeah, Seattle is also pretty high up latitude wise, so we get down to some pretty short days in the winter. At the earliest, the sun is setting at like 4 p.m. in the afternoon or something like that, which is just entirely too early. But what are you gonna do? I don't know where to register my complaint about the Earth's axial tilt, that it would not just be ignored. Uh, in
Yeah.
other news with me, I know you've been a long time Linux desktop user, and I think I'm finally making the switch myself on my personal machine. I was having a problem with my computer, my personal computer. Whenever I play games on it, it would crash. And I don't mean a blue screen of death. I mean the machine would power off completely, and until I went around to the power supply and toggled that off and back on, I couldn't reboot it. So I think it's a hardware issue, right? So but like it could be the processor or the motherboard or the GPU or the power supply, and I just didn't want to deal with it. So I went and bought a whole new computer, and this one is coming installed with the Ubuntu on it, as I just didn't feel that excited about Windows 11. So, do you have any Linux desktop tips for the Linux desktop neophyte? Are you a GNOME guy or a KDE
hmm
guy? What's your what kind of trim do you have over your shells?
In my case, I use like GNOME Shell, and then there's
Hmm.
like some very light tweaks you can do to like be able to have, I don't know, something very exotic like an icon on your desktop, which you kind of like to have some files
But who
chilling
needs
around.
that?
Yeah, it's like they've made some odd choices over the years, but I don't know, you can make it your own, and it'll work from there. So that's it.
Nice, nice. All right, cool. I may have to come to you for some tips if I run into problems. But
Mhm.
until then, what kind of announcements do we have for the people this week?
Yeah, sure. Let me share a screen. I will see from here, and I'll be sharing. Probably that is the right screen. Would be nice. Ooh, now I have to make a choice. Probably not that one. Nope, definitely not that one. We're gonna go instead
If
for
so many
the.
screens that it's become ambiguous, which is the one you want. How
Yeah,
many
well,
screens do you have? You just have the two monitors?
you're gonna learn when you run Linux that you can have like multiple virtual desktops left and right, and
Oh
then
yeah, I already do
yeah,
that on Windows. Yeah.
yeah, and then on any given day I'll have like depending on how far along in the day I'll have something like 5 to 8 of them open. And then when you care to share a screen, it'll give you just all of them from anywhere.
So
And
many
yeah,
options. That makes sense.
and you might be having the same tab open on three of them. And then in this case, I did have this one open both in my own account as well as the OpenWrt account. Because it is a Wednesday, it is one of those Wednesdays every 2 weeks. And we did another set of releases. So this one, quite excited. We have a lot of new recipes for you all. So if you're interested in exploring the security of your GitHub Actions workflows, then we have a lot of recipes now where you can get a better analysis of how those are doing. We also have some continuing works to work towards the Java 25 migrations. So if you already ran the Java 25 migration last week, where you want to pick up the instance main methods that you can now have in like a simplified form, that is an option. We have those, and we'll be continuing to expand our coverage there, bringing in things like module imports and everything that just gradually allows you to upgrade further and further onto idiomatic Java 25. Now, Beyond that, there's some modules for Kafka and Elastic that we're expanding. We added JSP support, which falls in line nicely with our extended support for TypeScript, which we'll tell you all about pretty soon, and how those two tie in to allow you to migrate from one to the other. And then beyond that, the usual further extensions of newer versions and recipes to help you all upgrade. So a lot of new stuff. If you want to get full details, then that is all available on our docs. I can share a link just now. And then beyond that, of course, there's the, I would say usual, like we have our monthly trainings. So if you're interested in joining the October sessions, where we'll have a US time zone centric version of the Open Rewrite introduction and advanced trainings, then be sure to register right now. So I can share those links, I think, right here. It's moderna.ai/moderna Open Rewrite Training Hub. And
I'll
we look
probably be
forward to
there
seeing you
since
all
it
there.
won't be at like 7 a.m. my time.
I think the other ones, they started at like 5 a.m. your time. So
Right, right. It's just the latter half that would be 7 a.m. Yeah, 5 a.m. It'd
So
frankly be easier for me to stay up until 5 a.m. than to wake up early at 5 a.m.
there's been quite a few cases where indeed I saw you awake at hours that I think that's probably not good. But,
Poor impulse control.
yeah. So yeah, those are coming up. We also have a webinar coming up. So if you want to learn more from both folks at Modern as well as folks at a number of well-established companies like Meta and DX, then you can join the webinar that we'll have where we're going to talk about code maintenance and AI. So it should prove to be an interesting session. So be sure to register for that one as well. And then we hope to see you there. And beyond that, of course, we're going to have our own new instance of Code Remix, and we'd love to hear your proposals to speak at Code Remix. So we have a sessionized link where you can join and submit your own sessions for topics that you think would be interesting for the audience that we have here with Open Run and Modern. And yeah, it was I'd say a great success last year, and we hope to extend it again the coming year. Now beyond that, there's some events going on, like conference season is starting to be in full swing. So Merlin will be at Jug Saxony, I think tomorrow even. And then the week after, both of us will be at DevX Belgium, which is going to be interesting as well. I'll be there with a workshop, and Merlin will be there with a talk on digital sovereignty. So that should be good.
Sorry, digital what now?
Sovereignty, so that you can switch from a, let's say, US-centric cloud provider to maybe someone that's based in Europe. So
I see.
I can, Merlin, he's always the only Merlin that is speaking. So digital sovereignty by tech stack liquidity. So if you're interested in that one, I'll paste the link again just now. And then the week after is the week of Basel 1. So that's coming up over the next 3 weeks. 3 events where you can see some of us speaking. I believe we have some other events still as well. So hope to
that is in
meet
Basel,
you.
Switzerland?
Yep.
I've been there. It's a lovely town.
It is. It's very much on the border. I learned last week that the airport
Yeah,
is
if you
actually in
fly
France.
there, you fly into France, and then you walk into Switzerland, and half the town's
Yeah.
across the river in Germany. So if you want to
Yeah.
like do one of those things where you're standing in like 3 states or 3 countries at once, it's a good candidate for it.
Yeah, you get some wet feet, but yeah, you can definitely do that. And there's also all kind of tax purposes and benefits that you can have from hopping around all of those 3. I think, do your shopping in the one, get your chocolate in the other, and then it's an interesting time. So yeah, hope to see any of you there as well.
We'll have to do a future stream on minimizing your tax burden by hopping through different Schengen area countries.
It's just I don't know. I've been told it's a nice country to live in, both for the outdoors and the hiking, as well as other reasons to make you stay.
Switzerland is surely very beautiful and expensive.
Oh, that as well.
So that brings us to our main topic for this week, which is obviously a fiery and acrimonious debate about Kotlin versus Java. on the side of Kotlin, there's me, and on the side of old, outdated, lame, dumb Java, there's Tim. And so we're gonna get into it, strain our working relationships with the fury of our positions, and maybe end the stream as bitter enemies. I think is a real possibility here. So
Ah,
so I thought for this that I would take something that we and our viewers and listeners are fairly familiar with in Java, and present Kotlin versions so that they could decide for themselves which is the superior language, at least for recipe authorship. So I've taken a few of the recipes from our rewrite recipe starter project, and I have converted them into Kotlin. Now, I don't know that this is, like the best showcase of Kotlin language features that could ever exist, but I think it's good for starting with something familiar. We can bridge, and we could kind of compare back and forth with the Java version, and see what we see. So I've taken three of the recipes from a recipe starter to just cover some different scenarios. Append to release notes, class hierarchy, and assert equals to assert that, and rendered them into a different language, which in this context is largely means taking advantage of syntactic differences, or small but I think significant for the user experience language features that can make this a language that I know some people prefer to write their recipes in Kotlin,
mhm.
and since you could target the JVM with it, that is no problem at all. So one of the kind of like first Kotlin language features that I really appreciate is, and you don't see this super clearly in this code, but is nullability right there in the type system. You don't have to use any annotations. You don't have to use anything extra to make null part of the type system. Just, wherever there isn't a question mark, we are asserting, on a type, we're asserting that this is non-null, that null is not a valid value that this type can have, and that will both be checked by the compiler, and the emitted JVM bytecode will contain, preconditions, require non-null method and invocations around method arguments, or assignments of fields, and while in the open rewrite code base, we're pretty good about using the JSpecify nullability annotations to have that information. We've gone through a couple generations of Java nullability annotations, and there's some things that never got all the way updated to use the JSpecify annotations. So there's some areas where it's not as comprehensive or maybe correct as we would
Mhm.
like. And in a language like Kotlin, you just don't have to worry about that. So I think
Yeah.
if we were keeping and I'm happy for you to present a rebuttal here, but I think if we were keeping a Java versus Kotlin like tally card, nullability in the
Mhm.
type system is a clear win on the Kotlin side. Do you disagree?
I'm gonna have to agree with you here. It is very nice to be expressive with it. It does at times lead to verbosity, where you can have like a notable list of notable elements of a certain type, and
That's
that,
true.
like, we had that. It's just you could hide it very well in just making everything potentially nullable. But it is
Yeah,
definitely an advantage of having that here. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good one. Another one that Java didn't used to be able to match, but now has an answer for, is the smart typecast within a type check. So, here we check if, we're overriding the get scanner method of scanning recipe. And actually, I guess there's a couple pieces of syntax here. One, Kotlin has this notion of like, if you have a function that is made out of a single expression, you can omit the curly braces and just say, it's equal to this, almost like you're setting a value. I guess this is actually a clearer example where we have um, where we have a string, being, this looks like an assignment to a function, but this is just syntactic sugar for, oops, if I could type, it would just be syntactic sugar for this. Um, and this would want me to specify that this is a string. So, this syntax is equivalent to this syntax, but a little bit more terse. And I think that'll be a theme as we explore these Kotlin language features, that you'll have
Yeah.
several different ways of representing the same sort of thing, which is
Hmm.
mostly not the case in Java, but was both maybe a strength, and I think Tim and I will end up arguing and slash agreeing a weakness of code bases in Kotlin. Let's see. We had a question in the chat about
Hmm.
getting a badge from OpenRare to put on LinkedIn. Is there a way to test my skill to get a badge? I think that I don't know if are we giving out badges at the end of the training courses? I mean,
I
I think
think.
that would be the place we would do it,
Hmm.
right? Those intro, probably after the advanced open rewrite class would be a place where we would give out badges. So I don't know if we've formally made a program of doing that, but that would be the venue. So check out those classes, and if the next like advanced open rewrite training we don't have badges to give out to people for their LinkedIn at the end, we would, whenever we got around to issuing those badges, do it
Hmm.
retroactively as well. So I'd say sign up for those intro and advanced trainings that Tim mentioned at the top of the show. Yeah, and we'll, we'll get badges out to people. Everyone loves a good badge. I could use a badge. I mean, I
Hmm.
got a T-shirt. That's pretty good. But maybe like a little row of medals.
Yeah.
Like a general of
Yeah.
some of some campaign that hands them out a little too easily. That could be fun. Anyway, where were we? Kotlin, right. So syntactic sugar for single expression methods. And it is one thing that is pretty common in writing recipes, that you are going to override just a single visit method from tree visitor or Java visitor or what have you. And so that syntax can be used to make that a little bit more terse. And this object colon tree visitor is, the equivalent of Java saying like new tree visitor, defining an anonymous subclass. This just defines a singleton object and says that it extends from the tree visitor class. So identical bytecode is going to come out of that. And here we see some nullability being like, yeah, this can accept a null, this can return a null, and then the next language feature, and this is one I really liked, and one that Java couldn't match for a while, but now has an answer for, that I think might end up being
Hmm.
Java's win over Kotlin, is that if you do a type check inside of a conditional, inside of the scope guarded by that check, that it is implicitly cast to that. So like source path is a method that's available on source file, but not on tree. But we've already checked that the tree is a source file, so we can call source path with no explicit casting to source path.
Yeah.
Now, the downside of this of Kotlin's way of doing this versus Java's way of doing this is that if tree is mutable, if it's like a field on a class that some other thread could potentially come and touch, this won't work, because it'll say, hey, between the type check and the usage of it, some other thread could have changed its value to something other than a source file, so I just can't guarantee that you can call this method. So then you're right back to where you were before, doing a cast, or assigning to a local variable. you know like if you do something like this, then you don't have to worry about that. But we're back in
Yeah.
declaring an additional variable in order to do that. And that's basically what Java just lets you do. It says, in Java land, if we were to undo that change, at least we'd be able to, say like S here and declare a new
Yeah. Yeah.
variable. Yeah, yeah. And so I think Java maybe looked at Kotlin's design for this and said, good idea, we'll do this a little bit better. So I feel like, Tim,
I
maybe I
think.
stomped and
Yeah.
stole your side of the argument there, but anything
I,
to add?
I think, but that's to my opinion, that is very much a theme where
Yeah.
um, the folks at the Java language development, they do look at other languages and they see the features that are I don't know, well, sought after there, and
Hmm.
then they think, well, let's have a measured evolving of the language, and do it in a way that just makes sure that Java can exist for another 30 years without having a lot of awards and things that you have to scrap, because they didn't quite work as well as they would have maybe hoped. So in this case, knowing the Kotlin folks, probably there'll be a future version where you can do the same thing as Java has, and you'll have yet another way of doing one thing within the language. But
Yeah,
I haven't caught up there whether they have any explicit plans there at the moment. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. Yeah, I'll be curious what they do for that one, if they do anything at all. I mean, this current implementation works pretty good, but yeah, I think having the option of doing it the Java way, where you do the type check and the cast in a single expression, could be nice. And then let's see, this isn't so much a Kotlin language feature. I mean, I guess it is kind of a Kotlin language feature, but there's something that I found several developers who have switched from Java to Kotlin or just started using Kotlin natively don't know about it. And let's see, uh, let's see, what is it? A list of, so let's see, if I have, a collection type uh, that has multiple elements into it. In Java, if you wanted to map a function across all of these elements, you would first explicitly convert it to a stream, and then you could call map, and then you could collect back to some new list or what have you, right? Now in Kotlin, they have methods like map coming uh, directly off of the list types themselves. Now uh, let's see. We'll say I don't know. It dot.
Uppercase or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It dot uppercase. Yeah. Perfect. So some people I've seen code bases that started in particularly those that started in Java and converted to Kotlin, but also just in pure Kotlin from the beginning code bases that will do this kind of thing a lot. And the thing about um, sequences or streams or Java streams is they do it intelligently in a way that each intermediate operation does not need to allocate an entire new collection to contain all of the elements that came out of the previous operation. But this does. If you do like a sequence of, if you do a sequence of, these calls, you know, lowercase. If you do a sequence of these, we start with this original list, whole new list is allocated here, whole new list is allocated here, and you can unintentionally be creating a lot of garbage, particularly if these are large collections. You could be allocating a really significant amount of memory to use this coding, to use this pattern. So these methods, it doesn't really matter for small collections that are mutated infrequently, but you can still use Java streams here, or the Kotlin idiomatic way is to use a sequence, which is basically the same thing as a stream, but has, more methods from the Kotlin standard library, and it's more idiomatic within Kotlin context to use sequences rather than streams. So, down here, where, the Open Reroute API returns streams at some point, so you can just convert those into a sequence. So sequences have all of the goodness of streams in terms of not allocating an entire new list for each of these kind of intermediate transformations. So I wanted to maybe put that out there as a small pitfall to avoid. I heard once about a company that like converted over to Kotlin, found it ruined the performance of their application and converted back, and that having to convert back was just because they didn't know about this, just because they just went straight ahead and used a bunch of maps and collects and things right off of collection types. So if you are using Kotlin, be mindful of we we're living in a JVM world. We got a garbage collector, but if you're just throwing everything at it, you can ruin your application's performance. No matter how hard that garbage collector is trying to work. So be aware of sequences, and beware the trap of calling collection manipulation functional methods on collections directly, knowing that each stage will do a whole new allocation.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. I think that would in itself make a perfect recipe candidate where you can have
that's an
this kind
excellent
of.
point.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point, Tim. We could definitely, I mean, because like these are distinct methods, and for one thing, these are extension methods, which is another Kotlin language feature, right? Like the 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 list, like this is just returning a Java list. I mean, I guess technically this is they're going to be calling it kotlin.collections.list, but at runtime that's just going to be a java.util.list. when you're running on the JVM. Kotlin can also target
No.
JavaScript or native. So assume I'm kind of saying everything, assuming we're targeting the JVM as our runtime, which is because we're coming from a very Java sort of background here. Um, I distracted myself. What was I saying, Tim?
We were talking about the developing a recipe to insert that as sequence
That's
into
right.
a collection of mapping operations that you do
That's
as
right.
a recipe itself.
And so I was so which leads us to another Kotlin language feature, which is extension methods, right? This is a method on iterable, but iterable is from the Java standard library, and it's you have there's not like the JVM has no notion of monkey patching. It doesn't allow you to add new methods at runtime or at compile time to classes that you're not defining. Um, so Kotlin has this notion of an extension method where you define a method somewhere else, could be anywhere. I mean, in this case, it's in collections KT, uh, that is made to look like it's a method that was defined on that class. Now, it's not. It's just syntactic sugar for passing this guy in as the first argument to the method. It doesn't have access to the private fields on that class or protected fields on that class. It's this it if you look at the bytecode emitted from this by the compiler, you're going to get out a method that is exactly like passing in an iterable as the first argument here. And indeed, if you tried to have both an extension method, iterable.map transform, and just a regular map function that took an iterable as the first argument, you get a compilation error. It's like, hey, I can't have two methods with the same name and signature and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is both kind of neat and also a feature that I don't like and think is bad. Uh,
It's
reasonable people will disagree
yeah,
about this, but
it's one of those things where you have to really trust your colleagues, and I have trust issues in general, I think, and with these kind of features, being able to define a method on just anything, anywhere, and having it be available everywhere,
yeah,
uh, not
it,
not
it
always a blessing.
it could be convenient for discoverability, right? Like I'm supposed to be taking Kotlin's side here, so it could be convenient for discoverability, right? Because anyone in their IDE who is using an object of
Yeah,
type foo will see, the foo.bar extension method you added to it. So it can surface your utility to your
yeah,
colleagues in a way that like a utility class, like a string utils or something, won't. They have to know that there's a string utils that has a method that does what they want. So it gives you a little boost to discoverability there, but I also find it can make things a little bit confusing to follow or debug because you might assume
oh,
that you're calling what looks like a method on the class, and so you might want to go to that class's definition to find that method or reason about it like, oh, it's not there, it's coming from some library I brought in, it's come from some random class that someone
oh.
or some random file that someone made in the current project. And I think this on its own is not a disaster, but I think this combined with some of the other Kotlin language features can potentially lead to uh, uh, your file not looking anything like Java or standard Kotlin and being very confusing to look at and read when you combine this with like operator overloading and scoping functions, which we'll talk about in a minute. You can make code that just looks, I mean, you can define DSLs that look like almost anything you want. But
And
yeah, so to
especially
your
with
original.
like having a hierarchy of these classes and then
Mhm.
the extension methods defined anywhere in that hierarchy and all of them becoming available to you. I've
Right.
found subjectively that the content assist that you get within your IDE isn't very good when you get 100 plus suggestions on just anything that you might want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, we got a comment on the chat about this. So I'm with the Java language designers on this one. I think that extension methods are probably more harm than good. But I mean, if you use them very deliberately, um, it's fine, right? It's not a big deal until it is. Um, I will Lombok. If you're like watching this and you're a Java guy and you're disagreeing with you, like, oh man, I love extension methods. This is awesome. Let's do it. Lombok does have an experimental feature to support extension methods. I I really don't think you should use that. It's
No,
experimental. It looks really weird in Java. Like I, IDEs and other tools are going to be confused by it because it doesn't look like proper Java at all anymore. So
it's
yeah,
that's the one feature in Lombok that made me look up that there is a way also in Lombok to not allow certain features to be used, which is
yes,
very
you see that
helpful
one and
for
you're like,
Lombok.
let's not
I
do
think
that one.
let's make this a rule. Going forward, everyone gets a config file that says never do this ever again. Thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, we could absolutely make an open rewrite recipe that went and found any collections that had these extension methods used on them, and stick in an as sequence method call. And that, if we don't already have that, we should put that into some kind of Kotlin um, common static analysis issues kind of setup. Okay, so let's see. So that's kind of extension methods and the promises and pitfalls thereof. What else do we want to highlight? Oh yeah, I had
Yeah.
mentioned scoping functions. And in Java there isn't really in Java, within a curly brace, you will have an implicit receiver for methods that is this. If I type, this dot, yeah, or this dot visit, I could go call the visit method, and this is equivalent to this. The object this is the implicit receiver for any methods that are not static methods or are not called off of some object explicitly. And there isn't really any way a user can change that. Not so in Kotlin, where you can use scoping methods to make kind of anything you want the implicit receiver. Like, let's rewrite this right now. Like, if I'm like, I don't want t, I just don't want to see that variable name. I'm annoyed that I had to give a name to something that I think is undeserving of a name. I can use the dot apply method, which now that t variable that I just deleted is the implicit receiver of any method calls. So I just take this and take off the t's. Oh, I should give this a different name so that this is, because now there's I want t dot text and not this dot text. We'll call original text. And now start to see
Yeah,
maybe
that's
some of the perils here. And the IDE does highlight it now, right? This text is a method being called off something. And so now I have the exact same code I had before, but I've hidden the T as the implicit receiver of any method calls. And you
yeah.
can start to see how, and there's a couple different methods like this. Like there's super visit I'll just say original text dot, there's like let, which provides the original thing, but as an argument, which is implicitly, is by default named it, but you could explicitly name it to something else, not it. And if you prefer like a method chainy style, a very like functional looking style of doing your methods, you could do that. And there are some other scoping ones, like there's like with, I think, but honestly apply and let were the ones that I would use the most often. And so you can start to see how you can use this to like make variable names disappear, and which lets you craft like really terse, nice looking domain specific languages between like this and operator overloading and extension methods. Uh, and this is fine, but it also starts to make it harder in like code reviewer, just like reading code, as
Yep.
you could have not just like the apply method isn't like a language feature that no one else can touch, right? Like anyone anyone could write this apply method, and it's as simple as saying this is an extension method off of every single type that exists. This is an extension method off of t, because we allow, or Kotlin allows that. So this method is just there on every object in the world, and that gets into functions being first class first-class citizens of the Kotlin language system, which I think I'm going to put this one clearly as a win for Kotlin, as I'm not a fan of the single abstract method way that Java does functional interfaces of like, okay, define an
Hmm.
interface that has your parameters, that has a single method that has the types you want, and then your
Yeah,
API accepts that. And I'm like, no, a function that accepts a string and returns another string, like that's the type. I don't need to give it a name other than that
yeah,
for the most part. So yeah, so the way that this extension method apply works is it just says it accepts a function that is itself an extension method, a function that where t is the receiver, and then it just invokes that, and returns t again. So there's not it just calls the block method, but now it's done this little switcheroo where where t is the receiver of any methods inside of there. Um, yeah, you can see all the other kind of ones here. Also,
yeah.
let, take if, etc. I guess we should point out over here if this inline modifier, this is a directive to the compiler that says, hey, when you are invoking this function, don't put a function, like don't do a function call invocation, just stick the body of this method into the bytecode directly where this goes. So that can help you to eliminate the overhead of function calls in exchange for, a larger program, as now you have not just, you know, one a method call, you have the body of the method inserted there, and that tends to only really pay performance dividends when you are using methods that operate on lambdas and using methods that operate that are calling other functions. And I think you'll even get a compiler warning if you don't um, if you use the inline method on a function that doesn't deal with lambdas in some way. The compiler will warn you like, hey, I'll inline this if you want, but you're probably not going to see any benefits from doing so. Yeah, so scoping functions are cool, great for making DSLs, but can make code totally unreadable. Or not
Oh,
totally unreadable. That's a little bit of an
but
exaggeration, but it can make it really confusing because you can nest these, right? You could have, there's not just like, there could be, I could be calling, like extension methods inside it. I could further do, text dot apply, and then, you know, to string dot apply, and make it just like a real challenge for the reader to
yeah,
know,
yeah.
if I to do some method, nested 6 blocks in, like, wait, what is this method being called on? Like, is there ambiguity? There can be ambiguity here. So this is nice for making terse code, but I don't think it's a big advantage for making readable code most of the time.
And it's again one of those things where you need to trust the folks developing the code to use these types of features wisely.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, but I've been a consultant where you get brought in for your expertise, and sometimes you kind of learn why you're being brought in for your expertise, and maybe you shouldn't use every feature that you come across all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Oh,
if if I was I might if we were doing a big Kotlin code base, a little bit of trivia. The original version of Rewrite Java was written in Kotlin. Like shortly after I joined, Jonathan, or maybe it was right before I joined. I never worked on it, the code base, when it was in Kotlin, so the exact timeline is a little fuzzy to me. But the original Rewrite Java was written in Kotlin, as Jonathan was a fan of the language too. Jonathan, original creator of Open Rewrite and Madaren CEO. Oh my God, Tim, you've turned into a hand.
that's I was trying to mute myself, but
Found a different
uh,
button, huh? But
yeah,
yeah, he'd originally
it's
written
just
Rewrite
greatness.
Java. He'd originally written Rewrite Java in Kotlin and decided to switch it all to Java, um, largely for the benefit of Java developers who would debug into the framework and contribute to it. Because Kotlin has some cool language features that end up generating code. They end up generating classes and methods and things that, if you're a Java developer debugging into it, look quite cryptic and confusing and makes it harder to debug. It's something you're not familiar with. And so to facilitate Java developers contributing to Rewrite Java, uh, Jonathan switched it all back to Java.
Yeah, I think early days when I joined like the open source community, I think that pattern of using Kotlin lingered for a while in the tests, where we needed
Yes.
text blocks to be able to make it easy for you to define your inputs and outputs.
That
And
is one really nice thing about
yeah,
Kotlin is that you can get some of those Java language, those later version Java language features, but and still compile to target the Java 8 runtime environment if you need to. Uh, and yeah, I'd actually created our original test framework, which was Kotlin oriented and was based around like named method parameters and some other stuff. These days, I've converted the testing for these recipes to use Kotlin as well, and this looks frankly identical to our Java tests, which and if we could, I don't know, if you wanted to be explicit about it, one feature I do like of Kotlin is named method parameters. Oh, right, but you can only do the name method parameters for functions that are themselves defined in Kotlin because it goes and under the hood and generates a version, a different version of the method that has some infrastructure to support named method parameters. So that's a feature I really like, but you just can't use it on any APIs that are defined or coming from the Java world. Let's see. I think there are some cool Kotlin language features I haven't touched on here, or that I just don't have good examples of in these recipes or their tests. That maybe I will just make a new thing to talk about. Um, One thing about Kotlin is that you don't have to wrap everything in a class, right? You can just create a file that has, some methods in it that do
hmm
that do whatever. And now, if you're targeting the JVM, what is going to come out of this is a class named testkt.class, which has, a static method foo on it, or rather, it'll probably be a companion object or something. Um, so you can go and create files that don't have a class in them, or to have methods and classes, and you know some of the things that Java is strict about, like one public class to a file, and the file must share the same name, are simply not enforced here. And indeed,
yeah.
public is the default as opposed to package private being the default. I think if you want to do package private, it's like an annotation, right? Is it package? I don't remember how to do the package private modifier in Kotlin. It's not one of the usual ones. They're kind of just like, yeah, do public or
Yeah,
private, or protected in some cases. Um, but one of our favorite Lombok features is data classes, uh, and data classes, uh, a string. And this is this is going to emit bytecode that is very similar to as non-null self-reference parameter. Okay, you're right. That would be pretty hard to construct one of those objects. Um, and like this is very similar to slapping Lombok's data annotation on a class. You're going to get getter and setter, Pojo style objects for all of these, and you're going to get toString and hash code methods. And because immutability is part of not the type system but the variable declaration system, these will be are treated as immutable values. If you want them to be able to be changed after their initial assignment, you can do var. I've already talked about this being indicating that this bar could be nullable, and so this is very nice. But now they released this before records existed, right? Like you can
Yep.
target Java 8 with this, and Java records are very similar to this in terms of like what they offer, what you might want to use them for, and they can have advantages about being like stack allocated. There could be memory usage advantages to them, and so Kotlin is again kind of put in this position of having like run out ahead, and then Java goes down a similar but slightly different path. And now they're like, wait, do we converge over what
Yep.
Java did?
Yep.
Do we like introduce redundancy in our language to get like Java style records allow you to define those in Kotlin, or do we just like stay divergent from Java and have this and maybe have some tension, redundancy, maybe even a place where Java's like better at it? What do you think? What do you think, Tim, about this
I, th-
versus records?
I think it's been a very interesting development. Like Kotlin, of course, came up around the time that the Java 8 was well established and
Yep.
didn't seem to move at any kind of pace.
Yep.
And I've read some articles previously which said, well, that at the time they were really touting that compatibility with Java. Like any
Yep.
Kotlin file can use any Java file and use it interchangeably. And I
Yep.
think that is going to be a challenging premise to like keep up. Now that you have, like you said, you have records in Java, you have even those like you showed earlier, where you can have like a function not surrounded by anything else. That is possible in Java now as well. It's just it's modeled differently, and that interoperability, I think, is going to be tough to um, keep giving you that guarantee, which then kind of, I don't know, breaks some of the selling point at the time that we had for you can use Kotlin and you can always go back or you can always keep using Java.
Hmm.
Whereas now, like 5 years on, it's starting to I don't know, crack a bit at the seams. So
Yeah, yeah, I think there's definitely some tension inherent to those design choices. So long as the foundation, it's like building upon a shifting foundation. Maybe the whole building doesn't come tumbling down, but it introduces tension and perhaps
yeah.
cracks or points of divergence. Oh yeah, there is one other Kotlin language feature I really like, which is implementation by delegation. Let's see if I have a good example of this. So if I had a class uh, list delegator, I could say that this guy implements list and or extends from if I remember how to do this. And it's like, hey, you gotta like go implement like you gotta go implement a whole bunch of methods if you want to be a list, right? But I can say if I'm like, well, what I actually want to do is like delegate to a list, right? I want to have a field of type list that I want all the overloads for list methods to just be forwarded to that field. I could say, val a is a list of string, and so I could say by a. And so now my list delegator class implements list of string, and any list string methods that are called on it are just forwarded to this a parameter. And so this can be a very convenient way to implement things. Like if you want to do this in Java, that's like it's totally possible to do this in Java. It's just a lot of override all the methods, call a.foo on for each one, and you can do this with multiple interfaces, and you can still go like override individual methods from list and do something different with them if you wanted to, I don't know, say a dot size plus one, like I'm a sneaky list, I lie about how many elements I have, I don't know, imagine a scenario where it makes sense to do this, right? But that's a possibility, and it's something that I find really convenient to do sometimes. um, and I'm not aware of anything like this in new versions of Java or on the road. Have you seen any
Uh,
jeps about this, Tim?
well, there's a Lombok annotation you'll hate, but apart from that, I'm not aware of any of these kind of efforts within the Java language.
Yeah, I think I have seen that Lombok when we were implementing Lombok support in Open Rewrite. I got exposed to several Lombok features. I'm like, oh, I didn't know it would do that. It might be a good thing I didn't know it would do that. But yeah, this interface, this I forget what exactly it's called, but like implementation or something like that, I think is very handy sometimes. Um, and I like it. This is a good one. Oh, and I guess this does also show Lombok has or not Lombok, Kotlin, whatever we're talking about. Kotbach Lomkin
I've
has
heard stories from folks where they were still using Lombok within Kotlin, and at that point, I
it's
kind of my
possible.
like
I don't know why you
how
would,
why,
but it's
but
possible. honestly, the way that Kotlin's annotation processing works is pretty interesting. They've got the CAP, the Kotlin annotation processor, and my information here might be a little out of date, so someone correct me in the comments if I'm slandering Kotlin annotation processing by saying this. But the gist of how it works is that it will, like, the Kotlin compiler, to allow interoperability with Java sources in the same classes, like it first will go through, let's see, I think the way compilation works, if I remember correctly, is it like goes through the Kotlin classes and generates stubs for their like public methods and interfaces, which it then provides to the Java compiler to compile all the Java, and then it comes back to do the Kotlin with all the Java classes already compiled, and then can compile all the Kotlin. And so, this kind of like trickery allows it to have Kotlin classes that reference Java classes that reference Kotlin classes, all in the same source set with two different compilers being active, and the Java compiler knowing nothing about the existence of the Kotlin compiler or the Kotlin language at all.
Hmm.
And so the Kotlin annotation processor is gets involved in this, where I think that like it maybe I shouldn't even open my mouth because I'm like half remembering a document on how this worked where I was like, kind of like, it does what? So what I'm like half remembering from my understanding is that like it like does like it has like the Java compiler like apply the annotation processors to the code when they are nah, I don't know. Kotlin annotation processing is I just don't remember it well enough to speak on it, so I'll just
No,
shut my
no,
mouth
no.
rather than making up some stuff that's just totally wrong. But it's a little bit complicated, involves more interoperability in the Kotlin and
Yep.
Java compilers than you might expect. But yeah, you technically can use Lombok and Kotlin, although why? Why?
Yeah,
You don't need to.
this is why, again, why you need to trust your colleagues that they won't. But I've been told that at a certain Dutch bank they are using Lombok annotations within Kotlin. And
That sounds like one where someone could definitely write a recipe to be like, hey, you're using Kotlin. Let's just convert the Lombok
uh,
features to their Kotlin equivalents and stop screwing around. And you
yeah,
could then make that recipe the something that runs in CI or on code reviews. And whenever anyone
yeah.
tries to like reintroduce that, it gets automated away. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so
Um,
we have some recipes in that space, but we those for now we're targeting Java with Lombok annotations to move towards non-Lombok Java. But for the Kotlin ones, I'm still to see the example of how hard it looks and how we can actually get that thing moving. So yeah, we'll see.
yeah, totally. Oh yeah, there's another Kotlin language feature that we've
I,
shown here, which is its alternative to the ternary expression. There is no ternary expression in Java because it's like, well, anything you can use if statements as expressions so long as it every so long as there has to be an else case, and every path along the if has to return a value at the end. And in that case, you can use an if like it was an expression. You can't say return if in Java, or you can't assign the result of an if expression to a value in Java, but you can in Kotlin, and I like that. I'm not a huge fan of the ternary operator. I don't think it's very readable compared to an if statement. I don't think it really saves you like it doesn't like save you a whole lot of
enough. Yeah.
characters, and it's annoying that you can't do this in Java. I think this one is like a clear. I think this is a clear win for Kotlin. I don't know. What do you think, Tim? Do you agree?
Uh, I do agree here. There, if you see the
It's kind of a
recent
small
trends
win.
where
It's a
where
small
like
win.
a switch expression now is can use an assignment or be used in a return.
Yes.
I think I could see the same being done for an if, but
Yeah.
I think within Java they're a little more hesitant to add two or three different ways to do one thing, and
Yeah.
yeah, so not
Yeah.
counting on.
I think that's
One thing
understandable.
was wondering with your example here is, do you need that explicit return, or can you just return
Oh no.
the if itself?
Yeah, yeah, you can do this, and indeed that's how I had it originally. So yeah, this is an
No, but
expression.
as in, can you move the return before the if? Is that enough within the apply to know that the whole thing should be returned? I think Groovy has that feature.
So the I believe it is the so apply returns unit. So apply essentially is like unit is like the equivalent of void. It's saying this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't return a value or this
Ah,
returns the
yeah,
unit value that has no state. There is a different scoping function that so this is this return is returning, and indeed if we click it here we can see that the ID helpfully highlights function.
mm-hmm.
So this return is returning from this function, not from this lambda, which is again different from Java. If you say return inside a Java lambda, you're returning from the lambda, and I think that can cause some ambiguity in some cases. But yeah, yeah, in this case, yeah, it's a little bit confusing how that all works. But it does. But yeah, so yeah, there's another case where like we could be, I mean, we could be nested inside of several more functions and lambdas, and like which are we returning from? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Another so a nice language feature that can make things a little bit harder to read. Let's see. I guess another language feature I like is you could do delegated. You can like delegate property initializers, and the most common one there is lazy. And so if I was like let's imagine that found is going to be like really hard to compute, right? Let's imagine this is expensive and we might not need it, right? It's possible that there's a code path where this boolean is never going to be evaluated. I could say by lazy. And is that right? There's no method set value, blah, blah, blah. Cannot serve as a delegate for var read write. Um, what am I missing here?
I've seen the example, but
Why am I? Hmm, why am I forgetting how to use by lazy? Uh, Let me go try this in some other context. Let's go try this down here. Let's see. Can I do?
is the type even needed?
Yeah. So let's see. So say nullable var foo is a string by lazy. Property delegate must have a get method. None of the following functions are available. All right, hold on. What am I missing here? Kotlin, lazy example. I could have sworn I remembered how to do this and had done this a bunch of times, but I apparently don't know what I'm talking about. So let's see. So by lazy atomic integer. Let's just see. We got class with heavy initialization by lazy atomic integer. Huh. Well, I'll figure out. I won't waste everyone's time trying to figure out how to use this language feature that I
All
could have
good,
sworn I
all
remembered
good.
how to use. Uh, but it's a handy one sometimes. It lets you bundle up, and there's other delegates too. Lazy is just the one that's used most commonly. That lets you kind of encapsulate patterns for object initialization in various ways. And one kind of common one, at least inside of Gradle files, is to like task by registering. Yeah, I don't remember how to use it here either. Oh well, let's forget about that feature then, since I can't speak to it with and do it justice at the moment with what I'm half remembering of the
All
language.
good, all good. There is a
Uh,
lot to keep in mind when developing in Kotlin. There's
it's true. It's
many
true.
different
There
ways
there
to
are
do one
just
thing. Yeah.
more language features, right?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more that you have to know to do the code, to write the code, to read the code, to do the code review, for better and for worse. Let's see. So I think that's been a pretty we've gone for a while now. I think that's a pretty decent tour of using Kotlin for recipe authoring. If
Mm-hmm.
you yeah, let us know what languages you like to use for authoring recipes. I mean, you can use any JVM language, obviously. Uh, no, I think Tim and I have definitely become bitter rivals through this discussion.
I don't
But
know.
we'll have to meet separately and bury the hatch at some point for the sake of our professional relationship. We can't let this beef that's between us derail modern Tim. So set aside your bloodlust for now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we'll have to have it out later.
I did on my end, but I see we're already on like an hour. So I did on my end have a small example of what I don't like about Kotlin,
Oh
which is
yeah,
just
let's show that.
uh,
I don't have another meeting we have to go
uh,
to. We still have like 50 people hanging in watching us. It's awesome.
uh,
So let's I
so
wouldn't want your good example
uh,
to go to waste.
I don't know. It's just it's very brief. It's just continuing down the some of what you've already shown.
Hmm.
Is that Kotlin has a lot of different ways to do one thing. So let me try to show this in a way that doesn't feel like jerky in when I do a demo. So you showed different ways of looping over elements. You already showed the apply, you showed the for loop, and a couple of those. And I had Claude generate a couple of different ways in which you can loop over an element. So we have something here, it is Kotlin that we're looking at. We have that person class similar to what you saw before. We have a number of them. And then there is one way to loop over them and print something for each of those. So this one wouldn't surprise you, it's just going to print all of them. But what? Never mind. The failures. I think you'll all agree that this is able to print.
Yeah, well, we can understand what
Uh,
this does just from reading it.
uh, but then I asked it to like, how many different ways can you find to do the same thing? Like this also allows you to loop over a number of items and print the same thing, and
For each
you
of
can
them
do
as
the same.
extension methods.
Yeah. And then if you go down here, you can see on the very right-hand corner that that scroll bar is very frighteningly not moving all that fast. Because I've been able to have it generate some 53 different ways in which you can loop over a collection and do a particular thing. There's some of them in here like recursion or tail
Oh,
recursion
I
or
do like the tail
uh,
recursion example.
it's very neat, but it's yet another way to do one thing. There's an
Hmm.
as sequence, which you so eloquently explained that this is the superior way of looping over a collection without doing the new allocations. Um,
Hmm.
Something Phil might be more inclined coming from Java to still use the stream way, which is
The
also
streams
available
still
too.
work just fine.
Uh, as is the parallel stream, and we're only, I think, not even a quarter of the way through yet, and then there is just so many more different ways which you can loop over a collection and have it print the name and the age of each of these persons. So that kind of, I think, illustrates to
Well, some of
me.
those you're calling like shuffle and reverse. I bet you could. You're both right that there's a lot of ways you can do this, but like if you could do a lot of these in Java too, right? They're not as many, but
Not
you could
as
still fill
many,
up several hundred lines with it, I'm sure.
but a lot of them are like built into the language, and in this
That's true.
case, like infix and operator overloading, some of the features you hadn't even dived into.
Didn't even get to touch
I've
on, yeah.
yeah, I've worked in a few too many companies where folks would read in the morning their latest blogs on features developed in Kotlin, and by the afternoon, I would see features being
All
pushed
throughout the code base.
where all I wanted was to read a for loop that you want to iterate over some elements. I don't want to know that there is an operator from list invoke that you can now call to then within that on this call for each or do the other also or apply or the let or the run or the width or the
Yeah,
views. I
the
mean,
scoping
it's just
functions.
yeah. I mean the list is like I did have it like stop at like 53 items. I even scrapped a few where there's like now we're being unfair. But all of these like this like double colon and things like this. I mean it's
I
great
mean
if you wanna
that's just a method reference. That's the same in Kotlin and in Java. So
but
if you want to
it's
go back to an example that's a little bit messed up, I think the infix function overloading is the real crime against readability. Uh,
yeah. So that would be these two. So
yeah.
this kind of like this puts me off from Kotlin because I do appreciate it when you're in something like a very scripting way of using
Hmm.
things. Shouldn't do that in your Gradle build files, but you can. But
Yep.
we have, for instance, a project in Kotlin at Open Rewrite which generates our markdown for the docs. And there it's
Yep.
very helpful to have these types of things, to be able to use these string templates that never quite left the preview phase in Java, and just
Yep.
be able to use this type of thing
Oh,
when you're
string
wrangling
templates
a
are
bit of
nice.
text.
I can't believe I forgot to
Yeah.
mention those.
Yeah, so I'm helping you in a way plead for the language.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
also
and
comes with, I don't know, reduced readability. Like, a year from now, you'll have no idea what you're doing here when you do use all of those features all at the same time.
yeah, the rewrite markdown generator. I had originally created that, and I chose Kotlin for it, and it worked great.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I've been calling myself the reluctant maintainer of that project because no one kind of took it up, and now I don't know, trying my best to keep that going. Whereas if you look at like newer versions of Java, there is a certain elegance to it. I think like this
oh
might
yeah,
even be shorter than some other languages that we have available to. I think in Python you'd even need more characters to do just this hello world print. And it's just I don't know. There's no need to have that wrapping
Python have to
class
do that thing.
anymore.
You have to check if this was if this script was invoked as the main script to decide if you
Yep.
want to print this. Which I've that that I hate that.
And one thing that can be said for this one, it is Java, so you do still have all those weirdness here. But I saw a really neat suggestion for formatting in Java, where you move all of these all the way to the right,
Yeah.
and then suddenly it looks a lot more like Python.
Yeah, I saw this suggestion too in satirical posts that have popped up on Reddit and Hacker News and such, being like,
Oh,
whatever curly brace placement you do, don't ever
no.
do this.
It's just you get a nice right margin, and then like I don't know,
Yeah, let's go back
I,
to the days of COBOL where we've got, specific like columns of
oh,
characters have specific meaning.
but there is an elegance to it. IO.print, hello
It's
world,
it's it's it's
fine,
very
yeah.
elegant if you just hide half of the hide half the
I,
IDE
I
from
I can
yourself.
put as many spaces here as I want and
Oh
just
yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah,
Just
wait,
just 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 shift
yeah,
it so far to the right no one can
done.
see it. Like wow,
Yeah.
what great concise syntax. All right, I feel like that's
So
a
yeah.
good note to end on. That now that we've perfected Java syntax with this abomination.
So yeah, look at the newer Java versions. There's a lot more other features in there as well. Very useful, very helpful. Some of them inspired maybe by Kotlin, but yeah, very much.
Do you think we
I
should
think
do a
an
follow-up
improvement.
episode where we just like talk about all the new Java language features and like
Definitely
extension
can do.
proposals? Because like
I mean,
we kind of intended this to be Java versus Kotlin, but it was mostly just me talking about Kotlin, making comparison to Java. But we kind of got to show off Kotlin today, but we didn't really get to show off
yeah,
the
sure.
Java side as much. Maybe I think we still need a topic for next week. Maybe we could do that. It could make sense to follow up with
Yeah,
that.
definitely. There is good things coming to the Java language as well. So that nullability that you started out with, there is a JEP enhancement proposal to bring some of the same to Java as well, but in a
Oh, that
backwards
would be
compatible way.
wonderful.
So, uh, so yeah, there is development. I can definitely recommend Java 25 and the recipes we have to get you there. But maybe on a follow-up episode we can dive into that in more depth. So yeah. Then with that, thanks all for joining us, and then hope to see you on a future episode. Cheers.
Thanks for coming and witnessing this historic meltdown and dissolution of our friendship and relationship, broadcast for the entire internet to see. Just the sort of a tawdry drama that gets the clicks. Which, speaking of, like and subscribe, and see you all next week.
See you all next week. Cheers.
Bye.